The WNBA has been a meme for a long time, and with the recent popularity of Caitlin Clark and the ensuing drama from other figures in the WNBA, there has never been more attention on the sport than there is right now. If you guys haven't gone down the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese rabbit hole, I strongly recommend you do. It's a good way to kill some time. But it brings up a very interesting question. In this unprecedented popularity and attention for the WNBA, why is every Caitlin Clark highlight reel being matched frame for frame with memes making a mockery of the sport? And this goes so much deeper than, well, men are better than women, duh. Women's sports, just like any other category, whether it's age, whether it's weight class, has the ability to be just as compelling. If you're skeptical, go watch the 92 Olympics, where Carrie Strug came out and clinched gold in team gymnastics against the Russians on an ankle with 2 torn ligaments. How do you stick your landing on a vault with 2 torn ligaments? By sticking it on one fucking leg. If that doesn't give you guys goosies, like, what are you even watching sports for? Like tennis, volleyball, soccer, boxing, MMA, and yeah, gymnastics. People often watch that with the same enthusiasm that they watch men's sports. So I'm going to take this opportunity to break down exactly what I think that difference is, and I think it comes down to one thing, and if they fix that one thing, I think it could 10x engagement for the WNBA. But Bromley, you're not a basketball expert. Why the fuck would anybody listen to you? I'm not a basketball expert. I am a competitive strongman and strength coach. I've been to World's Strongest Man in my weight division. I've coached world-class athletes, and I've been up to my neck for the last 8 years making content on human performance, what it is, how to get it, physiology, physics, even going into the gap between men and women. This is my life. It's my passion, and I feel comfortable making a few statements about the state of physicality in the WNBA. So let's get to it. As always, guys, this channel is brought to you by Barbell Apparel. You can get Bromley shirts, you can get slick barbell hats, you can get stretchy jeans that you could do full leg workouts in. You could go through boot camp in these things and they would come out in one piece. Check out my book if you want to know how to get stronger, BaseStrength.com. Hit the links below. Now, I'm not going to bury the lead here. This all comes down to one thing, and that is rim height. The iconic performances that you see in the NBA that are like ingrained into the cultural zeitgeist, whether or not you're even a basketball fan, is a function of 2 specific things. One is the height of the rim and the other demands of the sport, and 2 is the athlete, particularly the height of the athlete and the athleticism of the athlete. Now, this is a pretty easy thought experiment. If you were to take the NBA and make the rim a foot higher, you would probably get a worse result. If you were to leave the rim the same and get shorter athletes, you'd probably get a worse result. And if you were to leave the rim the same and the height the same, but select for slower or less gifted athletes, you'd probably get a worse result. And people are going to take issue with this, but the WNBA, guys, it's all 3. Let's look at some stats. The average NBA player is 6'6.5", and the range today is between 5'8" at the short end and 7'3" at the tall end. Holy moly. The average WNBA player is just under 6'1". That is almost half a foot difference in the average height of these players, and they're playing at the exact same rim height. So imagine for a second that the average height in the NBA dropped to around 6 foot, 6'1". Don't you imagine that the plays, the dunks, the physicality you would see would be so much different having to negotiate a rim that is so much higher relative to the height of the player? Almost definitely. Now, there seems to be some contention around this because it's been proposed. The women seem to be resistant to the rim being lowered, not wanting to concede inferiority, that it's somehow disrespectful to women's sports as a whole to voluntarily say, yeah, we need the goalpost shifted a little bit to create a playing field that upholds the spirit of the sport.
Diana Taurasi has said that it's almost like you might as well put us in skirts and put us back in the kitchen. Would you take it as an affront if the rims were lowered?
Yeah, I would. I'll take it as like a smack in the face. You know?
But it is like the silliest type of pride. It's not rational. And in this case, it's actively killing the sport. And the precedent for this is universal. It's everywhere. Every sporting division, not just women's sports, but if there's an age category, if there's an adaptive category, if there's a weight category, it always scales with the ability of that population of people. In women's sports, you have gymnastics. Women can't do iron crosses, so they're not contested in it. There's different events, different rules. In golf, they hit from a closer tee. In weightlifting, they use a thinner bar because women have smaller hands, and having a thicker bar turns what should be a test of whole body speed, strength, power into a grip event, which nobody wants. It's to uphold the spirit of what the sport is supposed to test. So why not change the rim height? The WNBA uses smaller basketballs. They have a closer 3-point line. They have a shorter game length. That doesn't even make sense. Like, these are not really integral to the performance of the sport, and they're fine with them, but not with the rim, which actually affects in a really profound way how the entire dynamic of the game goes off. Based on this one singular thing, you're actively hurting the performances, and that's going to hurt hurt engagement. But this goes way beyond just women can't jump as high, so you got to lower the rim. There is so much more to how this actively makes basketball worse for women. So first we have to talk about relative strength. That's how strong and powerful you are relative to your body weight. The higher that is, the more acrobatics you can do. You can change direction faster. You can do all kinds of things we associate with athleticism. But as you get heavier and heavier, strength goes up, but the rate at which you gain size goes up faster. So eventually relative strength turns around and you end up getting really powerful individuals who aren't very athletic. The extremes are comparing an ant to an elephant. An ant can lift 50 times his body weight. An elephant is obviously much stronger, but can't even really jump off the ground. It's the exact same dynamic with humans. Strength body weight ratios will always favor lighter individuals. Now, what that means, dear sports fans, is it is much rarer to have the same amount of athleticism and movement ability in somebody who's 6'5" compared to somebody who's 5'5". Remember what I said, athleticism and height aren't necessarily the same thing. So if you want somebody who is tall and athletic, you're pulling from two different pools and trying to find the people where it overlaps. Basketball is asking a question: who is the most athletic tall person? See, there's a misconception that the gap in strength between men and women is due to women being on average shorter and smaller and having less muscle mass, but that's actually not correct. If you investigate the gap between strength from all strength athletics of men and women of similar builds, you find that the gap persists and it is not small. And what that means is that if relative strength is worse for bigger men, it's exponentially worse for bigger women. Because women are already behind in strength and power, it gets exaggerated with the extra difficulty of maneuvering a bigger frame. And it shows in what we see. The fundamental difference in movement mechanics between these two sports is stark. And it turns out that that is clean burning fuel for internet memes. And as far as the WNBA is concerned, this is what contributes to baby giraffe syndrome. See, when people watch women's sports that are scaled appropriately, you don't have this curious look in your face, this confusion when you see the way they move. Skill is still on display. Speed and power is still on display. They look like athletes. Any sport in the Olympic Games, that's what you are going to see. Nobody ever looked at a female gymnast and said, they look like they don't know what they're doing with their hands. Now, there's another problem, because to get the best performers out of all women, you have to look at the populations that have the most people in it for the biggest talent selection. Remember, the way the game is built with a 10-foot rim, you have to start with somebody who's tall enough to work around it. So you're asking, who is the most athletic tall woman? Well, there just aren't very many tall women. For the NBA, the average height of 6'6.5" has been estimated around 1 in about 650, the data I got. Similarly, women who are 6'1" and taller, it's about 1 in 2,000. So the average NBA height is around 4 times more common relative to men than the average WNBA height is among women. It is harder to find women that are even that tall, and even still, that's still half a foot shorter than the average man in the NBA. So you are trying to find a smaller pool of women and pull out great athletes and still falling short in height from where the men are, and they're all playing at the same rim height. Do you see how the ladies are getting screwed here? This is made so much worse because boys are so much more likely to play basketball simply given the fact that starting out the rim isn't so much ridiculously taller than they are when they're in high school. So let's follow along. You got the women playing to the same size rim who are on average half a foot shorter than men, who are still more likely to be explosive and athletic at those heights compared to the women's heights. The women's heights are still more rare in the female population than the average men's heights, meaning you're pulling from a smaller population. And that means if fewer women are able or even want to play in the first place, because there is such a barrier with height, which means you are forced to choose from a pool of people that start with being freakishly tall rather than having any innate athletic ability whatsoever. The 10-foot rim is absolute cancer to the WNBA. This is how you take a legit women's sport and make it a meme. Everybody has to stop it. You have to drop the rib, and that's going to give people something to watch. You will actually broaden the talent pool exponentially, so actual athletic women can get into the sport at a young age, have a good association with it, expand the observer pool, expand the competitive pool, and actually have a game that is built off fundamental skill, ability, athleticism, and maneuverability. If everybody just got out of their own way, the WNBA could actually be something that is culturally significant rather than a yearly $40 million loss that the NBA just eats. Women of more average height would be able to play when they're younger, they would have a better association with it, and you would be pulling from a pool of athletes that are much more likely to actually have skilled, intelligent, fast, aggressive players who can add something to the sport. Or you can just not. I'm enjoying the memes as much as the next guy. But that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Until next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.